Hey guys, welcome to Rosie's Dessert Spot. Today we'll be creating this 2-tier Minnie Mouse themed christening cake. For the cake I've used a 7-inch top tier and a 10-inch base tier. And there's a 7-inch cake board underneath my 7-inch cake. Because it is going to be filled with white chocolate ganache and raspberry frosting, I'm adding a ring of dark chocolate ganache on the outside. Because it's so soft, under the weight it can potentially seep out of the sides and cause bulges, and so we're just adding that dark chocolate ganache ring as a barrier to keep everything inside the cake. I like to also pipe along the seam of where each cake meets the other cake, and this will just ensure that we don't have any air pockets trapped underneath. They also will create bulges on the side of the cake that you don't want. Create a nice thick final coat of frosting. You can do a crumb coat and then go over with a final coat, but because it's been covered with fondant, you're not going to see if there's any crumbs in your final coat, so I just go on with the one to save time. For the bottom tier, we're going to be repeating the exact same steps again. This is our 10-inch cake. And there's a raspberry baked into that white chocolate mud. Clean up the sides and the top and into the fridge. They both go to set completely for about half an hour. I'm using fondant in white and pink, and I've coloured my pink fondant with gel food colour. You'll want to roll it out to about 3 or so millimeters in thickness, and if you come across any bubbles on the surface, you can pop them sideways with a pin and then press out the air. To stick it to the cake, you can brush the cake with a little bit of water, or you could do what I did and just use vegetable shortening. I find that it's far more forgiving. If you need to pull off the fondant and reposition it, it comes off really easily, but it's also really sticky at the same time. Water, on the other hand, will start to disintegrate the sugar that's in the fondant, so as you come to pull it off, it'll crack and it just won't stretch as nicely. Undo the pleats, massaging the fondant onto the cake, and then once you reach the bottom, use a fondant smoother to smooth it out. Cut off the excess, and then I like to use 2 fondant smoothers, clapping them together at the very top to create those nice sharp edges. Continue to smooth the sides and the top until you're happy, and repeat the same steps with your bottom tier. For the dots, we're using fondant again, and I'm just dusting it with some cornstarch, cutting multiple little dots without stuffing, and because of the cornstarch, they'll come and separate off each other pretty easily. For the Mickey Mouse face, I'm just creating a little pocket of space for the ears to slot into the face. And then stick it all onto your cake with a little bit of water. If you guys are interested in classes, we are now running them, and I'll leave a link to that in the description box below for you. And I was pleasantly surprised with how this footage came out, considering it was now dark time. I haven't really decorated at nighttime and recorded, so I'm actually pretty happy with how this turned out. Had nothing to do with the tutorial, I just wanted to overshare that little fact. Stick these guys onto your cake and just be very mindful with how you're spacing them apart. Try to be as symmetrical as possible. For the base, I've just used a pink ribbon, sticking it on with that pin right at the end and making sure that it lines up with the back of your cake. For the top tier, I have this diamond embossing tool, which is awesome. You line it up with the base of the cake board so you know it's always going to be straight, and then you reposition and line up the pattern. It doesn't always match perfectly at the back, unfortunately, so be sure to start at the front of your cake and then work on the left and work on the right, and just switch in between so that when you finally do the last run, it's at the back of the cake. At the intersection of each one, I'm just creating a little cross to make it a bit more interesting, and then inserting an edible gold dragée. I'm learning how to say that word still. Adding a bit of water to stick it all on. Once you're done, it should look a little something like this. And then the next day, we were assembling and delivering. So I've just got 5 bubble tea straws. I have 1 in the middle and the other 4 in a square formation. And then I'm positioning my top tier on top. Once I'm happy with the position, I'll gently pull out the spatula and clean it up. Add a ribbon at the base of your top tier, and that should bring everything together. I hope you guys enjoyed this cake decorating tutorial. If you recreate it, I would love to see it. #Rosie's Dessert Spot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.